Hello everyone, and welcome to my Young and the Restless official 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Nick's scary message will explode out of nowhere, shattering the fragile calm that Victor Newman has tried to preserve in the middle of the growing storm surrounding Noah's disappearance. As Young and the Restless viewers know, the clock has been ticking ever since Noah Newman vanished into the Los Angeles shadows, and now Nick Newman's frantic voice message may be the final breaking point. Nick has been pushed to a limit he hasn't faced in years. The desperation in his tone is unmistakable, the uneven breaths, the panic he tries so hard to swallow, but fails. Sharon Newman, trembling beside him, fights to keep her composure as everything spirals further out of control. The two of them have searched every inch of LA's underbelly, but Noah remains captive, hidden away by a threat far more dangerous than either of them realized when they first arrived. Sharon and Nick have already been dodging traps and dead ends for days. Now, the walls feel like they're closing in, and there's a strong possibility they're moments away from being captured themselves. Somewhere in the shadows of Los Angeles, Matt Clark, or Mitch Bacall, as the city knows him, is spinning the final strands of a sinister plan meant to break both the Newman family and every rival who dares get in his way. Sharon senses it. Nick knows it. And yet they refuse to back down, even as their fear rises. But when Matt escalates the danger and Noah's life hangs by a thread, Nick is forced to send a terrifying SOS, a message so urgent that Victor Newman immediately recognizes it as the moment he must act. Victor doesn't hesitate. YNR spoilers say the instant Victor hears Nick's trembling, barely controlled voice, everything inside him shifts from calculated strategy to pure, unstoppable paternal fury. The mustache bolts into action, barking orders, demanding immediate flight clearance to Los Angeles, and instructing his security team to prepare for a war. Victor Newman has taken many emergency flights over the decades, but this one carries a weight he feels deep in his bones, because this time, two of his children and his grandson are in the crosshairs of a man he once thought he'd buried in the past. With a jaw clenched tight enough to crack stone, Victor orders his pilot to take off within minutes, fully prepared to land in Los Angeles as a storm of retribution and Newman vengeance. The emergency flight becomes a symbol of everything Victor stands for, his obsession with control, his fierce love for his family, his refusal to let his enemies win. As the jet slices through the night sky, Victor stares out the window, silently vowing that Matt Clark's reign in LA will end the second he touches down. Matt has crossed too many lines, resurrected too many secrets, and dragged too many loved ones into danger. Victor is ready to confront him face to face, and the showdown looming during the week of December 2nd to 6th is going to be one of the most explosive confrontations YNR has seen in years. But while Victor rockets across the country to save his family, another battle is unfolding in Genoa City, one that could reshape the Abbott legacy forever. Jack Abbott, exhausted, furious, and more determined than ever, has been assembling the Abbotts behind closed doors, pushing through a daring and risky proposal that could shake the business world. Victor's new AI threat has been looming like a dark cloud over Jabot for weeks. After watching Victor manipulate digital systems, corporate networks, and every vulnerability with ruthless precision, Jack has realized that traditional defenses will never hold. So he proposes something unthinkable, a full 3-month shutdown of Jabot. From the outside, it looks like business suicide. From the inside, it may be the only move that can prevent Victor from tearing the company apart piece by piece. The decision sends shockwaves through the Abbott mansion as Jack calls each family member into the war room. Ashley Abbott is horrified at first, struggling to imagine Jabot going dark for months, knowing what it means for employees, partners, and decades of history. Tracy Abbott fears that the emotional backlash will crush Jack's spirit, fearing he's risking too much, pushing himself beyond what his heart can handle. Yet as Jack lays out the full magnitude of Victor's AI threat, the digital sabotage already in motion, the silent infiltration into Jabot's systems, both Ashley and Tracy feel the truth settling over them like a cold winter storm. Their fears turn to resolve. Jack isn't just trying to protect a company. He's trying to protect their family's legacy, their father's dream, everything John Abbott built from the ground up. One by one, even the most reluctant abbots begin to nod. Jack has spent decades fighting Victor Newman in boardrooms, courtrooms, and personal battlegrounds. But this time, the enemy isn't flesh and bone. It's code, algorithms, and weaponized intelligence that could dismantle Jabot without a single physical strike. Jack's only chance is to shut everything down before Victor's AI can destroy them. Ultimately, after hours of debate, heartbreak, and soul-searching, Ashley and Tracy give Jack their blessing. Their final nod, their quiet acceptance, becomes the moment Jack realizes the entire Abbott family stands behind him. And with that support, Jack is ready to move forward. His drastic shutdown strategy becomes a ticking time bomb, one he hopes will deliver a move so unexpected, so bold, that Victor will never see it coming. Jabot will go dark, but Jack intends for the Abbotts to rise from the shadows stronger than ever, taking Victor's technological warfare and turning it into an opportunity to recreate the company from the ground up. Jack's gamble is enormous. The fallout could be catastrophic. But Jack Abbott has never been more determined to take back control. Meanwhile, as darkness falls over the Abbott's legacy and Victor soars toward LA, another emotional confrontation is brewing at Crimson Lights. Audra Charles, her confidence bruised and her pride shattering after multiple failed attempts to win back Nate Hastings, corners him yet again at the coffee house. She approaches him with that carefully crafted mix of vulnerability and seduction, hoping to tug on the threads of their old chemistry. With soft eyes and a trembling voice, Audra tries to talk Nate into giving her one more chance. She insists she's changed, that she's sorry, that she wants to rebuild what they had, but Nate, colder now than he's ever been with her, refuses to budge. Audra leans closer, searching for even the smallest crack in his resolve. She reminds him of the passion they shared, the brilliance they created together. She apologizes again, trying to make him see that she's willing to fight for them. But Nate has had time to cool off. Time to think. Time to remember every manipulation, every betrayal, every moment she promised change but delivered another storm. So he turns away, rejecting her once more. The sting is instant. Audra's pride snaps like fragile glass. She lashes out, her voice sharp, her words dripping with jealousy as she accuses Nate of cozying up to Victoria Newman again. And Audra isn't wrong, Nate and Victoria have been circling each other for weeks now, reconnecting in quiet corners of the office, exchanging those lingering looks that hint at a romantic spark reigniting. Victoria has been cautious, still bruised from her past heartbreaks, but she can't ignore the pull she feels toward Nate all over again. Nate, confident and calm in a way that infuriates Audra, confirms that there's nothing wrong with reconnecting with Victoria. His tone stays controlled, but his message is clear: Audra is part of his past now, and Victoria might soon be part of his future. Audra's fury simmers beneath the surface, her eyes glittering with the kind of rage that signals trouble on the horizon. She refuses to accept that Nate is slipping away. She refuses to accept that Victoria could win him back so easily. And with Audra's history of scheming, manipulation, and strategic chaos, her bitterness toward this rejection could be the opening chapter of a brand new revenge plot. Nate, unaware that he may have once again provoked a storm he'll regret, walks away with his dignity intact. But Audra stands there trembling, seething, plotting, and the look in her eyes promises that she won't be going down quietly. As all these storylines collide, Nick and Sharon's desperate search in LA, Victor's emergency flight fueled by paternal rage, Jack's daring corporate shutdown, and Audra's spiraling heartbreak, the week ahead is shaping up to be one of the most explosive in YNR history. Secrets, rescues, confrontations, romance, revenge, every thread is pulling tighter. And when Victor finally steps off that jet in Los Angeles, ready to face Matt Clark as the city vibrates with tension, everything viewers think they know about the Newman and Abbott families is about to be tested like never before. Nick's scary message, Victor's emergency flight. Nick Newman will send a scary message before Victor Newman takes an emergency flight. Since Nick and Sharon Newman still haven't found captive Noah Newman, they could use some backup. Sharon and Nick may even be on the verge of getting trapped themselves, so all the Los Angeles drama will keep getting worse. Once Victor gets a desperate SOS, YNR spoilers say he'll leap into action. Victor will take an emergency flight to LA and plan to go after Matt Clark aka Mitch Bacall once he arrives. Matt and Victor will have a big confrontation later during the week of December 2nd to 6th, but let's focus on Jack Abbott and his own daring plan in the meantime. It looks like Jack will manage to get all the Abbott's approval on his drastic scheme, which involves taking Jabot offline for 3 months or more. This may be the only way to prevent total destruction due to Victor's AI threat, so Jack's willing to take the gamble. Ashley Abbott and Tracy Abbott may be the last family members to give Jack the green light, but it seems they'll ultimately back him up. From there, Jack should use this shutdown strategy and hopefully deliver a move that Victor will never see coming. At the coffee house, Audra Charles will corner Nate Hastings and try to talk him into giving her another chance. Since Nate's had more time to cool off, Audra will hope that maybe he'll reconsider when it comes to their reunion. However, Nate won't be interested and will frustrate Audra with his latest rejection. Since Audra's apologies are never enough, she'll lash out and comment on the fact that he's cozying up to Victoria Newman again. Nate and Victoria have indeed been reconnecting lately, so it may not be long until they officially kick off a new romantic chapter. The tension in Los Angeles was almost unbearable. Nick Newman paced the tiny living room of their temporary safe house, his phone clutched in his hand, staring at the message he had just sent. It was a short, terrifying 3 words, but those words carried the weight of a father's worst nightmare: "We're running out." The urgency in his tone could barely be masked, and Sharon, sitting on the edge of the sofa with trembling hands, had caught every tremor in his voice. Every second that passed without Noah's return felt like a knife twisting in her chest. She could almost hear her son's laughter echoing in her memory, juxtaposed violently against the dread clawing at her heart. Every minute, every hour that Noah remained missing was another second Nick and Sharon were forced to confront the reality that Matt Clark, the man hiding behind the alias Mitch Bacall, was not only clever but remorseless. Sharon's eyes darted toward the window, the blinds drawn but the shadows outside mocking her. The city itself felt alive with danger. Cars moving too slowly, the hum of helicopters in the distance, and the occasional flash of neon lights bouncing off the darkened streets all seemed ominous. "Nick," she whispered, voice cracking, do you think Victor will?" She couldn't finish the sentence. She couldn't imagine a Newman not knowing what to do in a crisis, yet there was a fear that even Victor, with all his power, might arrive too late. Nick's jaw tightened. He had sent the message to his father moments ago, a single SOS that would trigger an emergency flight, the kind that Victor Newman never hesitated to take. But waiting for Victor now was agonizing. Every sound in the house made him jump. The creak of a floorboard sounded like an intruder, the hum of a refrigerator like a distant alarm. "He'll come," Nick said finally, more to convince himself than Sharon. "He always does. He'll know exactly what to do." Sharon's hand found his, gripping tightly. "But what if we're too late?" The words were barely audible, but the fear behind them was deafening. Nick turned to her, eyes burning with a mixture of determination and panic. "We can't think like that. We can't afford to. We keep moving, keep looking, and keep Noah alive. That's all that matters." Outside, in the shadows of Los Angeles, Matt Clark watched them through hidden surveillance. The corner of his mouth curled into a cold, calculating smile. Every step Nick and Sharon had taken since arriving in LA had been anticipated, every moment of fear he had so meticulously planted. Matt thrived on control, and watching their panic fed him in ways no one could understand unless they had stared into the abyss with him. His mind raced, thinking through contingencies, imagining the headlines that would follow if he delivered the ultimate humiliation to the Newman family. But he wasn't satisfied with simply capturing Noah. No, he wanted to break the people around him, to turn desperation into chaos and fear into permanent damage. Inside the safe house, the phone rang. Nick's heart leapt, and Sharon grabbed at him instinctively, eyes wide. But when he answered, it wasn't Victor. It was another call from an unknown number. A distorted voice filtered through the line. "You're getting closer," it hissed. "But not fast enough." The line went dead before either of them could respond. Sharon gasped, her nails digging into Nick's arm. They're watching us, aren't they? Nick's mind was a storm of possibilities. Every step they had taken, every alley they had navigated, every plan they had made, it was all now suspect. They're not going to get to Noah before we do, Nick said, voice trembling but resolute. We've got to be smarter, faster. We can't let him win. Meanwhile, Victor Newman was en route, a private jet cutting across the darkened sky like a missile. Every mile brought him closer, every thought focused on the rescue mission ahead. Unlike Nick and Sharon, he didn't waste energy on fear. He had decades of experience, power, and ruthlessness that had made him a force to be reckoned with. But even he couldn't deny the gravity of the situation. Noah was in the hands of a dangerous, unpredictable man who seemed to anticipate every move the Newmans could make. Victor's fingers drummed against the armrest of his seat, his mind racing through every contingency, every plan to ensure that when he arrived, Matt Clark would pay for every second of terror he had inflicted. Back in Los Angeles, Nick and Sharon had fortified themselves as best as they could. The safe house, while seemingly secure, felt like a fragile shield against the storm brewing outside. They were checking every door, double-checking every window, preparing for a confrontation that might be inevitable. Sharon clutched a small photograph of Noah, her eyes tracing every line of his smiling face, praying silently that her son was alive, unharmed. We have to stay calm, Nick murmured, though his own hands were shaking. We stay calm, we stay focused, and we get him back. That's all we do. Hours dragged by with agonizing slowness. Every sound, every shadow, every distant siren set their nerves on edge. Then, the first sign of hope appeared, the distant roar of an engine, a helicopter perhaps, slicing through the night. Nick rushed to the window, heart pounding in his chest. Could it be Victor? Could it be reinforcements? He scanned the skyline, eyes wide with hope, but shadows obscured the exact source. Sharon joined him, her hand on his shoulder, whispering, I think help's coming. Matt Clark, watching from a nearby rooftop, noticed the shift in their behavior immediately. He smiled, savoring their fleeting hope, knowing it would be crushed. He had planted additional traps along the route they were taking, and any misstep would place them squarely in his hands. The night became a chessboard, every move calculated, every piece a weapon. Matt relished the tension, the anticipation of the inevitable showdown with the Newman patriarch. Inside the safe house, Nick began to formulate a plan. They needed to lure Matt into making a mistake, to give Victor the opening he needed. He whispered to Sharon, outlining steps they could take, a series of feints, misdirections, and risky moves designed to confuse their captor. Sharon nodded, absorbing every detail, willing to follow Nick anywhere to save their son. Their bond, tested in countless ways over the years, was now forged in desperation and fear. Every decision carried weight, every breath was calculated. Victor's jet descended through the clouded Los Angeles sky, touching down on a private tarmac with precision. His security team, seasoned and ruthless, was ready to move at a moment's notice. Victor didn't waste time. Every moment counted. Every second could mean the difference between Noah being rescued or lost forever. He didn't know the full layout of Matt Clark's hideout, but he knew his own instincts, his own ruthlessness, and that alone made him a lethal opponent. Nick and Sharon, meanwhile, had initiated their plan, stepping out into the streets to draw attention, to bait Matt into revealing his position. Every step was tense, every shadow a potential threat. They moved carefully, weaving through the labyrinth of alleyways, hearts pounding, eyes scanning for any sign of their son or his captor. And then, a glimmer, a flicker of movement, a shadow that didn't belong. Nick motioned to Sharon, and they followed, holding their breath, hoping this was the moment that would finally lead them to Noah. Back on the tarmac, Victor had already mobilized his team, each member moving with precise efficiency. He had studied Matt Clark's methods, anticipating the psychological games he might play. Victor knew Matt thrived on fear, chaos, and manipulation. But Victor had something stronger, a father's resolve, a lifetime of surviving impossible odds, and a singular focus on saving his grandson. As they drove toward the first lead, Victor's mind raced with every potential scenario. Every contingency was calculated, every plan reviewed. Yet, even with all his experience, the stakes had never felt higher. Noah's life was in the balance, and failure was not an option. Nick and Sharon had drawn Matt out. He had taken the bait, stepping into the shadows, eyes gleaming with malice, unaware that Victor was already closing in. Every heartbeat was synchronized with the tension of the night. The streets of Los Angeles seemed to hold their breath. The city's noise faded, leaving only the sound of footsteps, whispered fears, and the distant hum of Victor's approach. And then, the confrontation was inevitable. The Newmans, together, resolute, desperate, were about to collide with Matt Clark in a showdown that would define the week. Nick's grip tightened around Sharon's hand. "We get him," he said firmly. "We get Noah. And we end this." Sharon nodded, a steely determination replacing the earlier fear. "Together," she said. "No matter what happens, together." Victor's team arrived just in time. His presence was a force of nature, unstoppable and fierce. Matt, realizing too late that his prey had summoned a predator more dangerous than he anticipated, felt the tension shift. He had underestimated the Newmans' resilience, the depth of their love, and the unstoppable drive of a man like Victor Newman. The city seemed to vibrate with the promise of confrontation, every second drawing the combatants closer together, every heartbeat a countdown to the explosive collision that would determine Noah's fate. In the shadows, Noah remained vigilant, frightened but alive. He had sensed the chaos, had felt the invisible threads pulling him closer to rescue. And when the first sounds of Victor's approach reached him, a spark of hope ignited, brighter than anything he had felt since his capture. Nick and Sharon were near. Victor was near. The pieces were finally in place. And as the city held its breath, Los Angeles became a battleground for love, family, and survival, a place where desperate parents would risk everything to reclaim their child from the hands of a calculating, merciless adversary. The night was far from over. Every street corner, every shadow, every heartbeat held the promise of danger, revelation, and heroism. And as Victor, Nick, and Sharon moved with precision and courage, the looming confrontation with Matt Clark promised to be more shocking, more thrilling, and more devastating than anyone in Genoa City could have imagined.